الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for ikhlas, for sincerity in what we say and what we do, that He makes what we do for His sake, and that He makes what we say and what we do pleasing to Him. Ameen. I want to thank the brothers from the Imam Muslim Family Center for putting together this program and for inviting me to speak here. Inshallah, the topic of our brief talk, inshallah, will be lessons for the family from the Quran. There are many different lessons an individual can learn from the Quran about the family. I thought it probably best, because there's so much to talk about, that I focus on one key point for Muslim men, Muslim fathers, Muslim husbands, and focus on one key point for Muslim women, Muslim mothers, Muslim wives. In general, a Muslim is to always look beyond the present. A Muslim doesn't make his decisions based upon how he feels right now or how she feels right now. But our decisions are always supposed to be based upon what the future consequences of our choices might be. And for this reason, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always calls us to bring in mind the day of judgment. And that the idea of standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should direct our actions. Musa alayhi salam, in speaking to Fir'aun, he said, إِنِّي عُذْتُ بِرَبِّي وَرَبِّكُمْ مِنْ كُلِّ مُتَكَبِّرٍ لَا يُؤْمِنُ بِيَوْمِ الْحِسَابِ. I seek refuge in my Lord and your Lord from every arrogant, proud individual who does not believe in the day of judgment. Because if an individual doesn't believe in the day of judgment and believe that he is accountable or she is accountable for his or her actions, then they'll do anything. إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحِي فَاصْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ. If you have no shame, then do as you please. The Prophet ﷺ also in his Sunnah has connected righteous actions with a belief in the hereafter. The Prophet ﷺ said, مَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ فَلْيَقُولْ خَيْرًا أَوْ لِيَصْمُتْ أَوْ لِيَصْمُتْ كَمَا قَالَ صلى الله عليه وسلم. Whoever believes in Allah and the day of judgment and the last day, then he should speak well or keep his mouth closed. And so always the Muslim looks beyond right now, and he allows his understanding of the hereafter, not just the hereafter, but even the consequences of the choices that he makes. He lets that be the guiding force behind what he does. Also, a part of the Sunnah of the Mursaleen, the Sunnah of the prophets and the messengers, is that they followed the examples of those who came before them. So even the Prophet ﷺ, being the best of prophets, was commanded to follow the example set by his forefather, Ibrahim alayhi salam. In Surah Al-Nahl, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, describing Ibrahim alayhi salam, Inna Ibrahim kana ummah. Ibrahim was a leader. He was an example to be followed. Inna Ibrahim kana ummatan qanitan lillahi hanifa. He was devoutly obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, turned away from everything besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hanifan wa lam yakun min al-mushrikeen. And he was not of those who associated partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Shakiran li an'amih. He was appreciative for Allah's blessings and goodness. Ijtabahu wa hadahu ila siratal mustaqim. And so Allah chose him, selected him, made him special, made him his khalil, his close friend, his intimate friend. Ijtabahu wa hadahu ila siratal mustaqim, and guided him to a straight path. Then he says, Thumma awhayna ilayk. Then we have revealed to you, an ittabi' millata Ibrahim hanifan, وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. And then we revealed to you, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to follow the way of Ibrahim alayhi salam, who turned towards Allah and turned away from everything else, and he wasn't of those who committed shirk. So the idea is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, and given our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, examples to be followed. When he lists all the prophets in Surah Al-An'am, he says, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ هَدَاهُمُ اللَّهُ فَبِهُدَاهُ مُقْتَدِهِ. These are the ones that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guided, so follow their guidance. Even in Surah Al-Fatiha, when we talk about the path that we follow, or we ask Allah to guide us to the path, how do we describe that path? صِرَاطَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ. The path of those whom you have blessed. There are people who have treaded this path before us successfully. And so we are encouraged to follow that path. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us to the path of those whom He blessed. And from the greatest of those whom He blessed was Ibrahim alayhi salam. And so as we mentioned, we want to focus on one characteristic for Muslim men, Muslim fathers, Muslim husbands. One of the outstanding characteristics of Ibrahim alayhi salam, amongst many, as Allah mentions in the Quran, he was an ummah. He was a leader. He was someone whose example should be followed in every single way, in terms of his belief, in terms of his worship, in terms of his manners, in terms of his honor and dignity, in terms of his bravery and courage. Many different aspects of his life. But what we want to focus on is the concern that he had for his children. Ibrahim alayhi salam had a huge, great concern for his children. And you find that throughout the Quran. You won't find an ayat that says Ibrahim was concerned about his children. But what you'll see are indications of that. You'll see indications of that in his prayer, in his conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'm not sure as to why that is. And is it because he was deprived from having children for so long, that when he finally had the opportunity to have children, because he hadn't had it, that he realized what a ni'mah, what a blessing that is. You know, oftentimes, as the English saying goes, familiarity breeds contempt. That when you're accustomed to having something, you take it for granted. And so perhaps because Ibrahim alayhi salam didn't have children easily, came later on in his life, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in him a concern for children. Even when the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, ajib, even when the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam went on the night ascension to the heavens, what was Ibrahim alayhi salam doing? He was looking after the children. He was the caregiver of the children in Jannah. Allahu Akbar. So it shows you his concern for his children and his offspring. So from the ayat of the Quran that indicate his concern for his children, when he talks about worshiping idols or being protected from worshiping idols in Surah Ibrahim, وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ اجْعَلْ هَذَا الْبَلَدَ آمِنًا. Oh, my Lord, make this land, yani Mecca, secure. وَجْنُبْنِي وَبَنِيَّ أَن نَعْبُدَ الْأَصْنَامِ. And save me and my children from worshiping idols. And not just himself, but mentioning and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save him and his family from worshiping idols. And then, in knowing that they will have to interact with people who might be different from them and might have different inclinations, he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make the people who are around them love them. وَاجْعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِنَ النَّاسِ تَهْوِي إِلَيْهِمْ وَارْزُقْهُمْ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَشْكُرُونَ. And make the hearts of people incline towards them, and provide for them Provide for them so that they can be thankful to you. Again, these are dua that he's making for his children and his offspring. This is all in the same dua in Surah Ibrahim, he asks his Lord to keep him in prayer. رَبِّ اجْعَلْنِي مُقِيمَ الصَّلَاةِ وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي. O Allah, make me of those who establish prayer and my offspring. And he make them of those who establish prayer as well. Allah mentions in Surah Al-Baqarah. In Surah Al-Baqarah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that he tested Ibrahim alayhi salam, tested him to see his obedience. He gave him directives, and Ibrahim alayhi salam followed those directives. He did what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded him to do, and he stayed away from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded him or prohibited him from, or commanded him to stay away from. وَإِذْ ابْتَلَىٰ إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ. And when Allah tested Ibrahim with commands, with words, with commands and prohibitions. فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ. And he fulfilled his obligation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And at that very moment of fulfilling that obligation, Ibrahim is not concerned with himself. He does not say, I've done it, I've achieved it, I've reached my goal. When Allah tells him he's going to make him an imam, he says, وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي. And make my children ai-imma as well. And subhanAllah, at the very moment of being honored, his children were still in his mind. Not only did he want goodness for himself, but at those very instances where he realized and conceptualized the goodness of what he had, he wanted his children to have it as well. قَالَ إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. I'm going to make you a leader and an example to be followed. People will praise you and talk about your good characteristics. And at that very moment he says, and make my children the same way. Make my offspring the same way. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replied, لا ينال أهد الظالمين. Yani those who are oppressive, who do not follow my commands amongst your offspring, they will not have that promise. But those who do, will. And when Ibrahim alayhi salam was in the noble, in a sacred land, building Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sacred house, and he busy in dutifulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In that moment, he did not forget his children. He says, رَبَّنَا وَجَعَلْنَا مُسْلِمَيْنِ لَكَ وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِنَا أُمَّةً مُسْلِمَةً لَكَ. O Allah, make us Muslims in submission to you, and make our children, our offspring, make them also a nation of Muslims in submission to you. And then he says, رَبَّنَا وَبَعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِنْهُمْ. O Allah, and send them, yani my children, my offspring, send them a messenger from amongst them. يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِكَ. Who recite to them your ayat. Yani I want my children to hear your revelation. Please let them have that. وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. And let that messenger teach them your book and the sunnah. Yani Ibrahim alayhi salam understood the importance of ilm. He understood the importance of ilm. And so because he valued ilm, he wanted his children and his offspring to have it. Send them a messenger who will recite your ayat and who will teach them the kitab and the hikmah, وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, and will purify them. He understood the importance of good character. And so he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send his offspring a messenger who would also teach them, his offspring, good character. Innaka anta al-azizul hakim. And you are able to do all things. And so again, we see this concern of Ibrahim alayhi salam for his children. And that concern, because it was sincere, and because it was a constant concern, and it wasn't a one-off, it was something he always continuously asked for at different stages of his life. And one of the things that's important to ask about, to understand about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that Allah hears and answers the sincere requests of the believers. And if we ask Allah for something good and something positive, do we think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't answer that dua? If we ask him for something that aslan, yani by its nature, is pleasing to him, and we earnestly ask him and beg him for that, isn't it something that he will give to us? Ibrahim alayhi salam had that confidence. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as shown in the Quran, blessed him with what he asked for by making his offspring and his children to be righteous people. And so we find that at his own deathbed, Ibrahim counseled his children to be believers in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah. وَوَصَّى بِهَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ بَنِيهِ وَيَعْقُوبُ. And Ibrahim counseled his children with it. And Ya'qub. And here it says وَيَعْقُوبُ. Ya'qub. There's a dhamma at the end of Ya'qub. What does that mean? That means Ibrahim did not counsel. This was not advice that he gave to Ya'qub. This is advice that he gave to his children and that Ya'qub gave to his own children at his deathbed. Now, who was Ya'qub as it relates to Ibrahim?
His son?
Grandson. Ya'qub was the son of Ishaq, the son of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And so here Allah puts together, shows you that Ibrahim had a concern for Islam remaining in his family. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ensured that Islam continued in his family by combining between the wasiyah, the final counsel or will that he gave his children, and the same counsel that his grandchild, Ya'qub, gave his own children, showing you that concern, it remained in the family. And so he says, وَوَصَّى بِهَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ بَنِيهِ وَيَعْقُوبُ. That Ibrahim counseled his children with this, and Ya'qub counseled his children as well. Ya bani, my children, inna Allah astafa lakum ad-din. Allah has chosen you. Allah has chosen for you this religion. And you don't exchange it for something else. Value what Allah has given you. Allah has given you this himself. And it's not something that was just passed down generation after generation. This is something Allah chose for you. Inna Allah astafa lakum ad-din. فَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. So do not die except that you are Muslims. And when he tells them not to die except as Muslims, what does that mean? That means continue to practice Islam. Because can a Muslim control when he dies? No. When we die is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what does that mean? Don't die except as Muslims. And what is your part in that? Keep practicing Islam for as long as you live. That was his counsel. Continue to practice Islam as long as you live, and Allah put that in his offspring. Did it stop at Ya'qub alayhi salam? So it was passed down to Ishaq, who passed it down to Ya'qub. Like, who was the son of Ya'qub alayhi salam? Who was the son of Ya'qub? He has a surah in the Quran named after him. Yusuf alayhi salam. Yusuf alayhi salam. And Yusuf, when he gives da'wah to the people who were in prison with him, he references his grandfather, Ibrahim alayhi salam. He said, وَاتَّبَعْتُ مِلَّةَ آبَائِي, and I have followed the religion of my forefathers, Ibrahim, وإسحاق ويعقوب. ما كان لنا أن نشرك بالله من شيء. And I followed the religion of my grandfather Ibrahim, and his son Ishaq, and his son Yaqub. And this is a continuing succession of the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We would never think of worshiping anything besides Allah. And then notice what he says. ذَلِكَ مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ عَلَيْنَا وَعَلَى النَّاسِ. That is the blessing that Allah has given to us and to people. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. And he recognized that following Islam and practicing Islam was a blessing that needs to be preserved. And so look how Ibrahim alayhi salam, because he showed importance to the practice of Islam and the continuation of Islam and his family, look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored him by keeping Islam in his family and allowing that practice of Islam to constantly, generation after generation, being referenced back to him. And Yusuf alayhi salam, 3 generations later, still remembers, was told about his grandfather and the importance that he gave to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So where does that leave us now? Ibrahim, as we said, is an example to be followed, an example that even the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was commanded to follow. And from the characteristics of Ibrahim alayhi salam is that he had concern for his children, that his children would continue to practice Islam even after he passed away, that Islam would remain a part of the fabric of his family and his offspring. For the brothers, divorce is way too commonplace. And I don't think that we appreciate the effect that divorce will have on our children and their practice of Islam. It is true that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has permitted divorce, and that there are times when it is necessary, that 2 people cannot reconcile their differences, and it is better for both of them that they not be together. But when it becomes a practice that every few months an individual gets divorced, that an individual has not reached the age of 30, and he's divorced 5 or 6 times, there is something wrong. There's something terribly wrong. And the reason why I'm addressing the men with this is because Allah has put divorce in our hands, which means it is our responsibility. Now, an individual might make a poor decision once in his life and may choose an unsuitable spouse. It might happen. It happens. But 4 times? 4 times? I mean, the first time you would learn. You know what you can deal with, what you can't deal with. You would do a proper investigation the second time around. But for this constant changing, because of how you feel. Because you can't control your tongue, because you can't control your temper, and because you can't be patient and you can't accept that people are human beings and will make mistakes. And so as soon as you get upset, you divorce. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it very, very difficult to get out of a marriage. Very difficult. Very difficult. First of all, there are only certain times that you are allowed to divorce. The first time is if a woman is not menstruating. You are not allowed to divorce a woman when she is menstruating. That's the first one. Number two, if she's clean, you could not have been intimate with her during the time when she's clean. You weren't intimate with her at all. Outside of that, you are not allowed to divorce. But because we get upset, because we don't like it, because I need my haq and my rights, then I disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't inquire about whether are you menstruating or not. I don't think about whether I was intimate in this time of purification or whatnot. I just act as I feel. Once divorce happens, the woman has a waiting period, an iddah, which is under normal circumstances, 3 menstrual cycles, which roughly, it goes around 3 months. Could be shorter, could be longer, depending on the circumstances. For example, if a woman is breastfeeding, then that means that her menstruation might be interrupted because of the breastfeeding and its effect on menstruation. And so her iddah may well be 6 months, because while she's nursing, she may not menstruate at all. And then once she stops, she starts menstruating again. And so you don't count until she starts menstruating. So now you have a woman who's in the house with you, let's say for at least 3 months. A woman that you are, or at least were at some point in time, attracted to. She still beautifies herself in the house. She still cooks and does other wifely things. You have to control yourself and not touch her for 3 full months, if we're counting by months. We said menstrual cycles is what we go by, but we're saying on average it's about 3 months. For 3 months, don't touch her. Don't touch her. That's very difficult. Very, very difficult. And you'll find that most marriages don't end because 3 months elapsed. Most marriages end because he divorced her 3 times at one sitting, or over the course of 2 or 3 weeks. But not waiting 3 months for the contract itself just to end. And what that shows is that what he really was upset about, or was bothered about, or what he couldn't be patient about, really wasn't all that important. It wasn't so great that his attraction to that woman was gone. And so what ends up happening is that he messes up his own life and the life of his children over something petty. Everybody gets upset. Everyone gets upset. And the Prophet ﷺ has explained to us what it means to be a man and what it means to be strong. He said, لَيْسَ الشَّدِيدُ بِالصِّرَاعِ. He said that the strong person is not the one that is simply physically strong. هُوَ الَّذِي يُمْسِكُ نَفْسَهُ وَهُوَ غَضْبَانٌ كَمَا قَالَ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. He's the one who restrains himself when he's angry. That when we're angry, we learn how to hold our tongues and not say something that is going to harm us and the people around us. Sometimes you need to walk away. Sometimes you know where you get and where you go. And sometimes you need to get up, open the door, and go outside and go somewhere till you cool off and come back. But when you say that word, you are divorced. You are affecting the lives of other people. And it's important that we don't take that lightly. And I'm afraid from what I've seen in my year of being here and from what I've heard, that it's being taken too lightly by men and women. But I'm holding us responsible because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't put divorce in their hands. He put it in our hands because we're supposed to act better and know better. We're supposed to think things through and make better decisions. And what happens is, again, because we can't control our tongues, we say it 3 times. And then our children get lost in the middle of that. And then they're between households. And now they see parents who, instead of providing a good example for them on what a Muslim is supposed to be, we see the very worst of Muslim behavior. We see people using children as pawns to get back at one another. We see people backbiting one another in front of their children, giving their children bad perceptions about them. We see a lack of patience. We see a lack of turning things to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and trusting in Him to help work things out. And so because we focus so much on ourselves, we don't realize that we have eyes watching us. And that this is the example of Islam that they are taking away. If they don't see that a Muslim family, that a Muslim marriage can work, if they never see that in their lifetime, how are their marriages going to work? If they don't see, if sons don't see from men, that they learn how to hold their tongues and to take it and to let women say what they say and that it doesn't affect anything. It doesn't make you less of a man because you don't respond. It shows that you have fear of Allah that you don't respond. And it shows that you understand what it means to be a human being. Because human beings make mistakes. And when an individual gets frustrated with his spouse and her not fulfilling his rights, doing what she's supposed to do, then let him look at himself and his relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And let him ask himself, is he fulfilling Allah's rights? Is he respecting Allah's haqq like he expects his wife to respect his? And if the answer is no, and I know the answer is no. If the answer is no, then that means we have to learn how to forgive. And we have to learn how to overlook. And we have to learn how to pardon, because that's what we want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do for us. Listen to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah At-Taghabun. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, inna min azwajikum wa awladikum aduwwan lakum fahdharuhum. O you who believe, from your wives and your children are enemies to you, so beware of them. O you who believe, from your wives and children are enemies to you, so beware of them. And they work against your interest. There's sometimes you try to do righteousness and they hit you, they push you in the other direction. He calls them adu, enemy. Aduwwan lakum fahdharuhum, beware of them. And then after that he says, divorce them? La. Ishqal, what did he say? وَإِن تَعْفُوا وَتَصْفَحُوا وَتَغْفِرُوا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. And if you forgive and overlook and pardon, then know that Allah is forgiving and merciful. If you forgive and overlook and pardon, then Allah is forgiving and merciful. Yeah, if you want Allah to forgive you, you got to learn to forgive. You want Allah to overlook your faults, you have to overlook other people's faults. And from the people that deserve that you overlook their faults the most are the people who are closest to you, which is your family. And it takes some time to learn that. It takes some time to learn that. But Allah gives success to those who seek it out. Allah gives success to those who seek it out. But you gotta, we as men have to put ourselves in our wives' shoes. Think about this. Your wife, by Allah's permission, chooses to stay at home, be an at-home mom, right? So all day long, she's with your children, trying the best she can to raise them, to rear them, to give them a good Islamic upbringing. She doesn't see you all day. You're going 8-10 hours out working and doing whatever you got to do. As soon as you come in the door, first thing you start talking about is, what's wrong? This isn't done. This isn't done. Who left this here? Who did this? Who did that? Why isn't this? Why isn't that? Well, I mean, just think about if someone that you love, someone think. Let's put it on an area we can relate to. Think about your parents. Your parents. You don't see them all day long. And every day you do see them, when you see them, when they come in the door, all they do is nag you about what you did not do in the day. And how would you feel? You'd be mad, you'd be ready to leave, you'd be frustrated. But as a child, or at least a few generations ago, I don't know what this generation does. As a child, you suck it up because it's your mom and your dad. And they might knock the mess out of you, right? But your wife's not your child. And so that frustration that she feels comes right back out. And then we got to be a man. You ain't going to talk to me like that. And then stuff happens. And then we regret it. And then we go to the shed. I said this, I said that, I was angry, I didn't. It's not how it works. When those hurtful words come out, first of all, we look at ourselves. One of the Salaf said, إِنِّي لَأَرَىٰ أَثَرَ الذُّنُوبِ فِي خُلُقِ إِمْرَأَتِي وَدَابَتِي. I can see the effect of my sins in the character of my wife and my horse. If Allah loves me, then that means that love is going to be in the hearts of the believers for me. And so when I see that people are acting negatively towards me, people of faith, I don't blame it on them. I look at my own self and I say, what have I done that has caused believers to be upset with me? What has made other Muslims act out of character with me? And not blame it on anyone or everyone else. The idea here is that as men, we have a duty to be more patient. Because as the saying goes, to whom much is given, much is expected. Allah gave it to you. He gave you the authority in the household. He gave you the authority of divorce. And so when you have authority, you got to use it in the right way. Sheikh Tahir, a couple of weeks ago, he's doing a class at United Muslim Masjid on the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I believe it was in the very first class. In the very first class, he mentioned that from Allah's names is that He is Ghafurun Shakur, that He is forgiving and appreciative. And then he went on to explain what the scholars have mentioned about these two names when used together. And he said that Ghafur Shakur, forgiving and appreciative is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appreciates all of the good that we do. And that as human beings, the good that we do, because we're human beings, is going to have mistakes in it. It's going to have mistakes and faults and errors because we're human. We have salat that sometimes we might, for a rak'ah or for a sajda, we might not be concentrating. We have fasting where we might say something we shouldn't say or do something we shouldn't do. But in spite of that, Allah accepts and appreciates the effort that we make, and He overlooks the fault in what we do. He doesn't reject it because it has fault in it. He appreciates that we made an effort, and He overlooks the fault. And in doing so, when we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the most perfect names, that means that these names show characteristics that are perfect. They are positive characteristics to have. And so as men, and if we want to be examples, if we want to be a'imma, if we want to be leaders, examples to be followed in our households, then we have to learn to be ghafurun shakur. We have to learn to be forgiving and appreciative. We look at what our wives do and the effort that we make, and we appreciate that. And we tell them thank you. And we try to notice the good things that they do. And when they make mistakes, and they will make mistakes because they're human, just like we make mistakes, we forgive those mistakes. Just like we hope and expect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do for us. And if that's difficult to do for your spouse that you're supposed to love, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Rum, that He put between the spouses love and affection. If it's difficult for you to do for your spouse, do it for your children. Be patient for your children. Suffer for your children. Endure for your children, because they are worth it. And not only are they worth it, you're worth it. Because whatever good comes from them, you will benefit from. Number one, because you were a cause. You were a part of making it possible. If you go out and work to provide for your family, to create a household of safety and comfort where your children can learn to pray from their mothers and learn to make wudu from their mothers and learn to give charity from their mothers teaching them and learn the Quran from the classes that you pay for, then you benefit from that because you, in working and being patient, you were a cause of that happening. And from the actions of an individual that continue after he dies is what? A righteous child that makes dua for him. Notice that characteristic. It's what? A righteous child. Not just a child. A righteous child. Wallahi, if the Muslim family breaks up, where's the righteousness going to come from? Where is he going to learn righteousness from? From where? Nowhere. He's going to be lost. Because you and your wife or ex-wife are going to be too busy arguing and fighting and bickering to be able to provide a positive example. And notice what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks about the dua that the children make for their parents, in Surah Al-Isra, chapter number 17 of the Quran, وَقُلْ رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا, O Allah, have mercy on them, كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا, because they took care of me and looked after me and nurtured me when I was young. Oh Allah, have mercy on them because they took care of me when I was young. If you didn't take care of me, where's the dua coming from for you? And it's an opportunity for us to save ourselves from a grave day. Read Surah Al-Insan and see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about strangers. About strangers. What they do for the sake of Allah. إِنَّمَا وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامِ. And they give food. عَلَى حُبِّهِ. In spite of their love for it. And there's a fight going on inside that you don't see. He looks like he's out there every week giving food, but inside it hurts because he wants to keep his money for himself. But he fights that want because he fears Allah. وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامِ. He feeds food. عَلَى حُبِّهِ. In spite of his love for it. مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. To the poor, to the orphan, to the captive. Strangers. Complete strangers. What does he say? إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ. We are only feeding you for the sake of Allah. That's why we're doing this. We're doing this to make Allah happy. لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. We don't want any appreciation. We don't want any reward from you. And we don't even want you to say thank you. I want my right. I want my haqq. You want it from who? You want it from her? You want it from Allah? If you want it from her, who's going to make sure that she gives it to you? Allah. And you think by being harsh and severe, that's what's going to get you what you want? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells his prophet, لَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. If you were harsh, hard of heart, they would have run away from you. And if you want it, then you ask Allah to give it to you. We stop trying to avenge ourselves and we let Allah fight our battles and we continue to fulfill our obligations. And Allah is the one who changes hearts. He tells his own prophet, who was the best of character, لَوْ أَنفَقْتَ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. If you were to spend everything in the world of wealth, مَا أَلَّفْتَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِهِمْ. You could not bring their hearts together. If you spend all the money in the world, you could not bring their hearts together. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ أَلَّفَ بَيْنَهُمْ. But Allah brought them together. And so when you see character from your spouse, from your child, that you're not happy with, then where do you go? Go to Allah. Oh Allah, give them good character. Oh Allah, guide them to the right path. Oh Allah, do you want to see your wife or your ex-wife? Do you want to see her in hell? Well, if you take her for that right all the way to the day of judgment, and what's going to happen? She can't give it to you anymore once she's dead. So what's going to happen? She's going to give up her hasanat until they run out. And then your evil deeds are going to go on her back. And then what? She's going to be dragged into hell. Is that what you want? That's the reality. And is it that serious? And so what does Allah say about those people who feed for his cause strangers? إِنَّا نَخَافُ مِنْ رَبِّنَا يَوْمًا عَبُوسًا قَمْطَرِيرًا. We fear standing in front of Allah on a hard day. And so what does he say? فَوَقَاهُمُ اللَّهُ شَرَّ ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمِ. And so because they suffered for Allah's sake, because they fought themselves and what they wanted, Allah saved them from the harshness of that day. وَلَقَّاهُمْ نَضْرَةً وَسُرُورًا. And exchanged that difficulty with happiness and pleasure. وَجَزَاهُمْ بِمَا صَبَرُوا. And he rewarded them because of their patience. جَنَّةً وَحَرِيرًا. Because they were patient. And that's what we need to have. We need to be patient. We need to stop, think about what we're going to say, think about the effects of that, and just learn to shut up and take it. Because you're not taking it for her. You're taking it for Allah. And Allah says, as he mentions in Surah to Yusuf, after Yusuf mentions the trials that he went through, being separated from his father and mother, being thrown in a well, being lied upon, being locked up in prison. After enduring all of that, what does he say? Innahu man yattaqi wa yasbir. Whoever fears Allah, continues to do what Allah tells him to do, and is patient, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Allah will not cause the reward of those who do well to be lost. And so this is, again, this is the encouragement for the men. We have to be better in how we deal with Muslim women. If the issue is choosing poor spouses, then we have to get better in our selection. But this constant divorce is having an effect on our children now. Because women, Muslim women, because we marry them and divorce them at such an unbelievable rate, because that's practice, guess what? The Muslim woman, especially black Muslim women, have lost value in the community. Where you have other nationalities, when they talk about getting married quickly, who they talk about? Black women. Black Muslim women. Why? Because of how bad we treat them. Mahar is a purse, a collection of books. What's she gonna do with that? And we so cheap. We gotta. In order for her to get books in the household and to learn something, it's gotta be the dowry, and she has to have a value. Yani the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Listen. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when Ali, who was Ali? That was the Prophet's cousin. Where did Ali grow up? In the house of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Who did he marry? His daughter. The one who he grew up in the house with. That's how close they were. When Ali wanted to get married, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him for a mahar, for a dowry, he said, I don't have any money. What did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say? Yeah, okay, you my cousin, no problem. He said, no. Where is that armor that you won from the Battle of Badr? Yani go sell that and give my daughter a mahar. In spite of how close they were, in spite of the fact that they were family, in spite of the fact that he knew Ali was a good man, a righteous man, you got to give them their right, because that retains value for them and dignity for them in the community. And that's why it's so easy for them to ask for a khuda. Because you ain't give them nothing. You didn't give them anything. Think about it. If she understood with a khuda, if you gave her a dowry of, say, let's say $3,000, $5,000, example, a part of the khuda is that she has to give the dowry back. You think she's going to give you back $5,000? Yes, sir? It affects the marriage when we undervalue. And then where is that bad sunnah going to carry on to? Your children, your daughters, and my daughters. That's what's going to happen. That same bad sunnah is going to carry on to our children, where our sons take advantage of our daughters. And a person might say, well, divorce is permissible. True. But permissible acts also have to be looked at in light of their effects. Al-wasa'il laha ahkam al-maqasid. The means take the rulings to the end. Marrying a woman, is it permissible or impermissible? Permissible. Marrying a woman or proposing to a woman who has already been proposed to and accepted, is that permissible or impermissible? Impermissible. Why? Because of the effect it will have in causing enmity. Proposing to a woman is permissible. But if someone else has already proposed and that proposal has become accepted, then now you proposing, which was permissible, becomes haram. Why? Because of the effect it will have. And so when we talk about the permissibility of divorce, look at the effect it will have. And whatever effect it will have, that will determine what this empty ruling, what it takes. We have to keep that in mind. But for the sisters, for Muslim women, Muslim mothers, it is important in this day and time where values are being projected to us through the media, through literature, through various means about what it means to be a woman and what's honorable, that we don't lose sight of the value of being mothers. In this day and time, we're taught to value so much more, so many different things. And a woman's a woman if she has a degree. A woman's a woman if she has a high-paying job. A woman's a woman if she has this and has that. Get an education. Get an education. And the more educated you are, the better this ummah will be. But don't undervalue what it means to be a mother and what it means to be a wife, and ingraining the importance of that in our children. Because if they grow up seeing being a mother and being a wife as something that is lowly and backwards and unhonorable, then what's going to happen to the children of those mothers? They get left in daycares where people don't care about them, in schools where, at least with a mother who has concern for her child, if they have to go to a school that's not Islamic, at least she can help to kind of combat some of those ideas that are being projected. At least he has someone to come home to, or she has someone to come home to and talk to about his or her day at school and what went on and what this means and how to deal with that. But if there's no example at home, and I don't know why, I like to think that I don't like to think, but I think that part of the reason is this idea that we have to be somebody. And we have this quest for fame and fitting in and posting what we do on Facebook and on Instagram and Twitter, and the whole world has to be privy to what we do. And so if I'm a mother at home, there's not a lot I can post. There's not a lot I can show people. I probably wouldn't want to show people what I deal with every day. But it's about learning to appreciate that and learning the special position that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to women and to mothers in the Quran. And that as Muslims, it's sufficient for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to see us and to hear us. Allah subhanahu, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, "Ma adina Allahu li shay'in ma adina li nabiyyin yataghanna bil Quran." Allah doesn't listen to anyone or anything like he listens to a prophet who recites the Quran beautifully. And what does it have to do with anything? The idea of beginning to keep in mind that when we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Samia, that he hears us and he's pleased with those things that we do that are pleasing to him. The idea that even if your husband or no one else around you sees you teaching your child and spending time with that child and teaching that child about Allah and about his Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might be listening to you, that the angels might be listening to you and reporting that back to their Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala, and becoming satisfied with that honor and with that prestige. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees us. وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى الْعَزِيزِ الرَّحِيمِ الَّذِي يَرَاكَ حِينَ تَقُومُ وَتَقَلُّبَكَ فِي السَّاجِدِينَ. And put your trust on the Almighty, the Merciful, who sees you when you stand to pray, and your motions and movements as you pray in congregation. And Allah sees what you do if no one else does. And Allah appreciates what you do. And that sometimes in doing those things that don't seem to have a lot of value to the rest of the world, sometimes we gain a special place with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by which He takes care of us and protects us. Notice what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks about Musa's mother, alayhi salam. Musa's mother. And that's how she's known when she's talked about. You don't get a name. What's her name? We don't know what her name was. But all we know what she was? Musa's mother, a prophet, whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loved, came from her household. Two prophets. Two prophets. Musa and Harun. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about giving Musa back to her, what does He say? وَرَدَدْنَاهُ إِلَىٰ أُمِّهِ كَيْ تَقَرَّ عَيْنُهَا وَلَا تَحْزَنْ. And we returned Musa to his mother so that she would be happy and not be sad. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was concerned with her happiness because she was concerned with his. And He mentions that in two surahs. He mentions that in Surah Al-Qasas, and He also mentions that in Surah Taha. فَرَجَعْنَاكَ, and we returned you. فَرَجَعْنَاكَ إِلَىٰ أُمِّكَ كَيْ تَقَرَّ عَيْنُهَا وَلَا تَحْزَنْ. So that she would be happy and would not grieve. Also, the mother of Yusuf alayhi salam. You don't hear about her the entire surah. No mention of his mother. And there's a slight indication that she was there the whole time at the end. When he honors his parents. Allah says, فَلَمَّا دَخَلُوا عَلَيْهِ, and when they entered upon Yusuf, آوَى إِلَيْهِ أَبَوَيْهِ, He brought his parents near. The whole time in the surah you hear, Abu, 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 his father, his father, his father. But when it was time to be honored, Awa ilayhi abawayhi, He brought his parents near to him, both of them. وَرَفَعَ أَبَوَيْهِ عَلَى الْعَرْشِ, and He lifted his parents up to His throne. And his mother was there the whole time. And a person reading the surah over and over again would never notice that she was there. But she was there. And Allah mentioned her being there. And Allah made sure that she was taken care of. Why? Because she feared Allah in what she did. And she respected the important position that she had. And Ismail, the mother of Ismail, Hajar, and her patience in dealing with a difficult circumstance, staying in Mecca until it became a vibrant city that people came to. She was pleased with being a mother, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored her. And so this also shows the importance of Muslim husbands investing in the education of their wives. Their secular education and their Islamic education, so that they can help to build this new generation. And their work is often underappreciated, but they have a huge effect on how children come out. And so because of that importance, it's important that we show that that's important by trying to give them the best that we can. And to conclude, I want to bring our attention to this desire for better Muslim households and the importance of being better examples. Trying to develop better Muslim households and the importance of us being positive examples. Examples in patience. Examples in self-restraint. Examples in honor. Examples in appreciation. Examples in forgiveness. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Furqan the dua that His slaves make for their families, who he describes as Ibadur Rahman. There's a sajda, a place of prostration, or an ayat of prostration at the end of Surah Al-Furqan, chapter number 25 of the Quran. And from that point, Allah begins to enumerate the characteristics of his slaves, who he calls Ibadur Rahman, the slaves of the most merciful. And so he enumerates numerous characteristics. And at the very end of that, what does he say? وَالَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا هَبَ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ. And those who say, and the servants of the most merciful, they say, "O our Lord, make our wives and our children the joy of our eyes." And what are they doing? They're making dua for their families. The slaves of the most merciful ask Allah to make their families upright. رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ. Make them the joy of our eyes. How are they going to be the joy of your eyes? By being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then after that, وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. And make us an example of the righteous. Make us leaders amongst the righteous. And we ask Allah to rectify our families. But at the same time, we understand the importance of embodying good character. Good character as it relates to the worship of Allah. Good character as it relates to dealing with other people. Good character as it relates to patience. Good character as it relates to watching our tongues, watching our mouths. We don't just ask Allah to fix them, but help us to be better examples. And again, it ties in nicely. Ties in nicely with what we mentioned earlier about Ibrahim alayhi salam. How did he attain imamah? How did he become an imam? By doing what Allah told him to do. وَإِذَا ابْتَلَىٰ إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ. And when Allah tested Ibrahim, when his Lord tested him with kalimat, with the Sharia, with doing what he told him to do, فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ. And he did it. That's how we can be leaders. And then what did he say? إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. I'm going to make you a leader of people, an example to be followed. What did he say? And my children. And my children. So we have to be better examples as husbands, as wives, as mothers, as fathers. And we have to seek Allah's help in doing that and realize that we can't do it ourselves. And to not react because we're angry, but to look at the effects of the decisions that we make and to be patient for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُ شَيْئًا. Perhaps you hate something, وَيَجْعَلُ اللَّهُ فِيهِ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. And Allah can bring a lot of good out of it. Perhaps you hate something. Perhaps you find something real hard to deal with. But Allah brings a lot of good out of it. Imagine your children memorizers of the Quran. Imagine your children being decent, responsible Muslims and human beings. Imagine people coming up to you, and it's not why you're doing it, but coming up to you and saying, "Wallahi, Allah's blessed you with a good son, with a good daughter. I envy you. Allah's blessed you with good children." And imagine being in your lonely grave, and you see the hasanat of righteous children that you had an effect on. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His mercy. We ask Him for His forgiveness. We ask Him to help us to be patient and endure for His sake. We ask Him to guide us to those things that are pleasing to Him, and to save us from the evil of our own selves and shaitan, and from our anger, and to guide us to those things that will make Him happy. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.